Relax in the coaching lounge and engage with compelling, motivational speakers. Be prepared to transform your inner world to shape your outer world through empowering discussions. Tune into the Coaching Lounge now.
You're tuned in to another episode of the Coaching Lounge with your host, Rebecca Gordon, lead life coach at satellitelifecoaching.com. Listen to interviews with creative thinkers, motivational speakers, models of success, and key people of influence. Tune in, relax, engage, and transform your life now.
Here's your host, Rebecca Gordon.
Joyce Schafers is an author, public speaker, and a life skills coach who specialises in relationship counselling. Joyce is also the co-creator of the ADG approach, which is a counselling model that's designed to help couples address unresolved emotional pain from the past that's responsible for causing problems in relationships. Over the course of 20 years, Joyce has written and self-published the best-selling children's book series, Bellwether's Message. And she's provided personal and professional development workshops, and she currently works in her coaching practice in St. Albert, Alberta in Canada, where she helps couples get to the root of the emotional challenges that prevent them from having the type of relationship they really want. You're in tune to Rebecca Gordon, and I'm going to discuss with Joyce Schafers the ins and outs of relationships, in particular communication, the problems that we have in communicating with each other in our intimate relationships, and also looking at why relationships may fail and what we can do to sustain and nurture healthy relationships. Joyce Schafers, welcome to the Coaching Lounge.
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you inviting me onto your show.
You're very welcome. And can you tell us more about where you are? You're in Canada today?
Yeah, so I live in Alberta, so it's a Western province, the second one from the left.
Okay.
And so we have some mountains, and I in particular live in the prairies. So it's a farming community. I live kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's very quiet and private, and I love it. So today we're having a sunny day. It's beautiful here, so great. I'm enjoying my day.
Excellent. That's great. So I need to ask you then, in that area, that settlement where you live, what motivated you to become a relationship counselling expert?
Well, I have to admit that it was a series of really bad relationships. And I always say, I think I learned everything I know the absolute hard way. So the ADG approach was created because, like I said, I had a series of negative relationships, and I recognized that I had this pattern. And the biggest thing for me was the realization was, okay, I'm the common denominator here. I'm part of this process, and I really wanted to understand the ins and outs of that, as in, what was I doing? What part did I have to play in creating this pattern that I couldn't seem to end? So combining that with my life skills training, which is all really emotion oriented, my colleague and I, set on this path of really determining to get to the root of these issues. Why were my patterns playing out? Why were her patterns playing out? And, what did that all have to do with emotions? Okay. So it was really formed out of this need of my own to end my own relationship patterns.
Okay. So in terms of the patterns, just to dig a little more on that, did you realize that the same scenarios were playing out in, each of the different relationships? Or was it sort of like just a rolling pattern, repeating?
So the same situation. So I had 3 significant relationships. All of the men were alcoholics, and they all ended with them cheating on me and leaving me for other women. So that was a clear pattern in my mind, and certainly they had their part to play in it. But I wasn't as necessarily interested or focused on that. I wanted to know what my part was. Why is it that to me it wasn't a coincidence.
Right.
It wasn't. There was a clear reason for that.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed to get to the bottom of.
Okay. So it does stand to say then that if we are having some challenges in relationships and we recognise that actually we need to take time out and think, well, what are the patterns here? What are the indicators that show that something in particular is going on? Is that what you help people with?
That's part of it. So when couples come to me, it isn't always about, okay, I have this pattern and I need to understand it. It's mostly about, we're married or we're in a relationship and we can't seem to communicate through these really hot topics. Like there's every kind of troubled relationship has 1 or 2 hot topics. Like it could be intimacy, it could be finances, it could be whatever. And, they both are at their wits' end, having felt like they've tried everything to, try and overcome these problems, but they haven't been able to. So that's commonly why people come to me. But I think, and certainly, extremely effective at helping people with that. But I think this whole idea of really digging deep and understanding my pattern was part of what was so effective in creating this model that I use now with couples. The same skills needed. It's really like get to the root of things, right? Is kind of the skill that I use with these couples. It's like let's not talk about dirty laundry and let's not talk about staying on Facebook too long. Let's get to the root of it. Like, where does all of this stem from?
Right.
So
okay.
That's
What I will do, I'm going to ask you about the model in a little bit more depth later in the program. But I just want to present a scenario to you, Joyce, if I can do, please. And it's this. It's some scenario I think that, many of us can perhaps relate to. So you meet someone special and you want to do all that you can to make the relationship work and start off in the right way. What would you say are some mistakes that people might make when they start out in a new relationship?
Right. Okay. So part of what I've learned is, and it's what I call the cycle of unresolved emotional pain. Okay. So, and most of the couples that come to me, like 99% of them, don't actually understand that this is at play in their relationships. And really what it is, we all kind of have unresolved emotional pain from the past for the most part. I mean, I know that's a generalization. And so because of that emotional pain, we kind of look to others to make us feel whatever, loved, accepted, important. And that, I always say whatever you needed emotionally and didn't get as a child is exactly the thing you're needing and not getting from yourself and you're trying to get from others. So when people get into relationships, I don't really think they realize that this is happening, but really they're looking to their partner to kind of heal their own old wounds and, quote unquote, make them happy or fill them up, so and when we're not aware that we're doing that, that puts a lot of pressure on relationships. This expectation that this is the guy that's going to make me happy, or this is the tincture, and so that, that pressure creates a lot of problems in relationships. And that to me is probably one of the biggest pitfalls.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying there, I had another guest on, which is, her name is Michelle Barnum Smith. And the title of her show was Marketing to Marriage. And she said the same as you, when we meet someone, we're thinking, oh, this person is the one. And we put so much pressure on them. And, there are so many expectations that may not be met that, creates issues. So what's the root of most communication problems in a relationship?
Well, from my perspective, my opinion is that the root of the communication problems really stems from emotional deafness. And I'll let you know what I mean by that.
Yes,
So
please. Yeah.
earlier I said couples will come to me because they have these hot topics that they can't communicate through, they can't resolve. And when you dig a little deeper, what I found is that I'll use an example. So I was working with this guy once, and his mother abandoned him when he was 4 years old. Okay, so that's extremely traumatic. And so what that trauma did to him, it sent him the message that he wasn't lovable as he was. He wasn't good enough, and he never felt like valid, right? So he took that message, that idea of himself, and I call it his wiring. So his wiring was, I'm not good enough, because, the message of his mom leaving him kind of, wired him that way. Mm-hmm. And then he went out into his life and he met this woman and they got married. And so you got to remember that all of that trauma and emotional pain he had never actually looked at or dealt with. So when they, were in a relationship and their hot topics started forming, well, the hot topics were around, any time that she would do something that would trigger his fear of abandonment. So say she was a really hard worker. So let's just say she would spend, several nights working late at the office. Well, that might trigger his trust issues and abandonment issues. And when he would go to communicate through it, there was nothing that she could say to him that would convince him that she was faithful and loyal. He had emotional deafness, and it was triggered because of the trauma. So her behaviors, as innocent as they were, would trigger his mistrust and abandonment. And so that became, trust and issues around that and fidelity became their hot topic. And there was nothing she could say to him that would convince him that she was faithful, because he was emotionally deaf. His past would instantly be pulled into their relationship, into their conversation, and the emotional deafness, the trauma, is right at that forefront, right? And it kind of, the emotional deafness formed in triggers really renders us, in my opinion, very incapable of communicating effectively. I've experienced it myself. It's like you go from feeling like you're a sane and normal person to like feeling like you can't, like you just don't know which way is up. So that's a long answer to your question.
Well, no, it's all valid, because you're explaining, and giving an example there of someone you've worked with. I do need to ask then, with that same example, I mean, how the people you work with, how much willingness is there for them to want to explore the emotional traumas, because it can be very painful?
Right. And so what I always do, and I do this for a couple of reasons, is I offer, I really like to do a phone consultation. So it's a free 30-minute phone call. And in that time period, I talk to them about my model. I let them know that it is very much emotion-based, and that we are going to be delving around the emotions, and it might be uncomfortable. And so I get, I definitely address that up front. Yeah. And, often it's like the women who are like, yeah, I'm totally fine with that, right? So, and generally speaking, and the guys are like, well, I'm not really good at it, but then I always ask, well, that's fine. Yes. Are you open to it? So if all they need is this openness that, you know what, maybe the issue has something to do with, emotional pain, so that's kind of all they need. And then from there, I feel like I do a very good job of taking care of my people. I understand it's hard. I understand it's traumatic. And I, one of my biggest priorities is making them feel safe and taken care of. Yes. It's that emotional first aid is what we call it in life skills.
Yes.
And so you do what you can to take care of that person and make them feel safe and comfortable. So I like to say that I address that up front, and most people, once they've kind of signed up for my program, they're okay with it. They've gotten to that point of feeling comfortable.
Great. I mean, I must say, I've looked at your website and speaking to you as well now, in person. I love your transparency. And,
Oh,
that is a perfect recipe, for clients or customers who come to you who need to work through issues and may not have worked with anyone in the past, but there has to be that trust, doesn't there?
well, for me, when I'm looking for help, say, or, I want to know that this person knows knows where I've been, like,
Yes.
knows that they can relate and they've been there and that they've gone through it and they've come out the other side and they're successful or happy or whatever. So that's I know that it's kind of taboo in the world of psychology, say, to share your personal stories and form that connection. I personally just disagree with that. I feel like I do that to set the groundwork. If I'm going to be transparent and open, then that makes it a little bit more comfortable. Like, I can't imagine me expecting someone to pour their heart out to me and I'm not sharing anything personal. I
Right.
just,
Yes. Yes.
for me, I find that would be really tough. Like,
Yeah.
so I do want to be open. I do talk about my own challenges and how I've overcome them, because I
Yeah.
think that's part of what people need is like, how do you
Absolutely.
know what you're talking about? Why do you know? Did you
Right.
just read it from a book or do you know it? You know?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, there are some textbooky people out there, but when you've lived it, you've walked the walk and you've talked the talk, and you've been your own first client, then the customer who comes to you feels that, and they have trust and faith in you walking with them on the journey. So I'm actually going to just announce your website here now, Joyce. It's www.joyce-schafers.com. Your surname spelt SCHAFERS.com. And you work with individuals, you work with couples, and you work with groups. What we are going to do, we're going to have a little bit of a break. We're going to come back on the other side, and we're going to talk a little bit more about, your DG model. And we're also going to talk about emotional health. You've touched on emotional deafness. I want to explore a little bit about the emotional health check.
We'll be right back after these short announcements from our sponsors.
Think big for a moment. If you could create your best life, how would this look? What if, in just 30 minutes, you had a plan of action to get closer to your dream? Make the impossible possible and claim your free session today. Visit www.satellitelifecoaching.com now.
Satellite Life Coaching and Training presents a range of courses in the Personal Excellence Program. These courses include how to master change in uncertain times, colour your life, enhance your skills in 7 steps. By attending these courses, you will become more exceptional. You will have better positive outcomes in your life. For a booking form and more information, call 0121 411 9500. I'm Rebecca Gordon. I'm the coach at satellitelifecoaching.com, and I'm here in the coaching lounge today with Joyce Schafers. Joyce Schafers is my expert on relationship counselling, and we've touched a little bit on the cycle of unresolved emotional pain. Joyce has spoken about emotional deafness, and looking at Joyce's website here, she offers an excellent service which is personal service, where she works with individuals, with couples and groups on solving emotional problems and resolving them, I should say. Resolve is the key word. Is that right, Joyce?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. I like to think that it's a very solution-oriented approach, as in, it's one thing to have the awareness. And I always say it's one thing to know that, okay, my daddy issues caused me to choose bad boys,
Right.
but it's quite another to really deal to that, to really address that issue. So so that pattern ends. So I'd like to say, yes, it's very much about solutions and rather than just, awareness.
Yes. Now, I know when people do come and work with you, I mean, everyone's got their own story, to tell, and, they play scenarios out in their lives. But I just want to check, and linking back to what you said about the patterns in a relationship, what is something that someone can do to actually work through separating a past relationship issue from a current relationship?
Okay, so for me personally, my whole process, and that's, the process that created this model, was recognizing, like I said earlier, so what we needed emotionally and didn't get from our childhood, say, is exactly what I learned to give to myself. So in my particular situation, I had this like neediness that would say, please show me that I'm valid. Please show me that I'm important. Please show me that I matter. Because I really felt like I didn't get that. I didn't get that, the kind of the emotional nurturing that you'd like as parents to give to your kids, and it really left me questioning my worth and my value and my importance. And so my pattern was all about, and I wasn't aware of it when I was doing it, and that's the problem. Right. My pattern was all about using others to prove to me that I matter, to prove to me that I was lovable and important. So I kept, that always backfires. So I kept choosing people who couldn't do that, for one thing. And another thing, it is actually impossible. It's actually impossible for someone else to make you feel loved or important. Like it's like you can't go to a store and buy a bottle of importance, and drink it, and then all of a sudden you feel important.
If only.
Yet that's what I was doing in these relationships. It was like, okay, so the first one, it's like, okay, can you please prove to me that I'm important now? Okay, well, that didn't work. And then that kept happening. So when I broke the pattern, that was by simply recognizing, like, this process is so simple, and I'll never say it's easy, but it's so simple. But it was all about giving to myself what I needed. So to prove to myself that I was important, to prove to myself that I was a valuable person, that I was lovable, that I was, and once I did that, and I'm not going to say it happened overnight. It was a process. And of course, as I was doing that, we were developing this model too. So it was like, that experimental kind of thing. But really, it's about filling my own cup. We always talk in terms of empty cups versus full cups. An empty cup is, I need you to fill me up. I need you to prove to me that I'm lovable. Versus a full cup is, you know what? I got this. I'm good. I feel I'm important enough. I'm lovable enough. And I'm a full cup. And so when I go out into my world, I'm not looking for anyone to fill me up. It's more about, when two full cups get together, it's a beautiful thing. Absolutely. Because it's an extension of love. It's an extension of all those awesome qualities, as opposed to this neediness that happens. It's like, fill me up, And that really contaminates relationships. So my pattern ended when I was able to do that for myself.
Okay, great. So for someone who's in a relationship and, things are going well, they're both enjoying their companionship, how can the individual in the relationship or the couple check the emotional health of their relationship?
Right. Okay. So I think I always say you can have whatever you want, just don't need any of it to make you happy. Right. So it's the need that's the problem. So I would say one red flag or one thing to look at is if there is a need, okay, say that going back to my own example or to this other fellow's example, he needed his wife to prove to him that he was important and valuable and lovable. And when she couldn't, there was problems. So I would say you'd watch for that. Watch for that need. It's like, have whatever you want. Want a relationship that's beautiful and amazing and awesome. That's great. But when you need it, that's where it's time to start digging around. And you'll know if you need something by how much problems it causes in your relationship. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. So, I
Right.
mean, I was going to ask you a question, but I think you've answered it really. I'm not sure. I'll ask it anyway, and you can probably add on or extend if you like. But if things aren't going well for someone, perhaps because of neediness, for example, what is a step they can take to start turning things around?
Right. Okay. So that's exactly what I do when I work with couples.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the first thing is, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, is it worthwhile then asking you a little bit more about the ADG model at this point? Does
Yeah,
that
well,
fit
we've
in?
kind of been really talking about it all along.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really all about, filling your emotional cup. It really is. It's about, so how I do it with couples is we first get a handle on what are the hot topics. Okay, what are those hot topics? And I'm always, when I'm working with people, always got this set of glasses on, if you will, that's always focused on connecting the dots from the problems today to how that might be, there's a correlation to the past. Okay, so that trauma from the past. So the focus is, let's really look at these hot topics. With me, while we're talking, I'm always like, okay, knowing that there's going to be a link to the past. And then once we understand what the hot topics are and the triggers are, then we use those triggers. So it's basically, so say that example of that guy who, his mom abandoned him. So a trigger for him would be her working late, say. So we would look at that and I would ask him to recognize, unplug from the idea that she's the problem and plug into the idea that potentially this could be about his past and his abandonment, and ask him to get clear about how he feels. Like, so he feels scared, he feels worried. So it's always, it's amazing. The tears always well up at that point, because what they are doing is reliving their trauma from the past, right?
Yeah.
So a big part of this is really about helping them become aware that, you are really pulling your past into this relationship, and you're feeling exactly like you did when you were that kid, and that emotion is still unresolved, and hence the cycle, right? So I use real current challenges, current problems, current issues, those triggersome topics, those hot topics, to help them get clear about what's going on. So I really paint that picture for them, and it's really cool to see. Often those are those jaw-dropping moments when they're like, "Wow, they didn't see that. Like, they didn't recognize that correlation, that pattern."
Right. I can imagine there must be some profound shifts in the emotions that make that massive difference to the person's world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I would suspect it doesn't just it's not isolated to intimate relationships. It then ripples out to relationships with other family members or work colleagues, etc. Might that be the case?
It's normally always the case. Like, we usually have one root issue will bubble up in one or two areas. So in that particular guy's case, it was playing out in his intimate relationship with his wife, but it was also playing out in work. Like, and that was something that really blew his mind. And that's obvious, that often surprises most people. But, because we tend to think it's like, okay, I have this problem over here and that problem over there, and they're separate and unrelated, and they require different solutions and blah, blah, blah. But I find that's not really the case. There is that one root issue that kind of bubbles up in a couple of areas. And the cool thing about this model is that when you kind of get it in one area, those skills are transferable to the other area too.
Right.
So it's really neat. It's like killing two birds with one stone.
Yes, okay. Joyce, I'm not sure if I'm a very good interviewer today because I started off asking you, the steps to take for someone turning things around, and then I interrupted just as you were going to give the first step. And can I just check, have you shared that first step in your account just now, or did I interrupt too soon?
Well, and my questions are usually long, so out of fairness to you, that's a problem. But so we use those current life situations, those current problems, to get clear about the triggers and, connect the dots to the past. So that's the awareness piece, right?
Yes.
The solution piece comes from helping my clients, it's about emotional 101. It's like emotional awareness, recognizing it's like a re-education about emotions, because, as we're raising children are conditioned to believe that if I'm a good little kid, my mom will praise me and I'll feel good, right? If I'm bad, I'll get in trouble and I'll feel bad. So that kind of locks in this erroneous mentality that, how we feel is dependent on out there. So that's a real problem, because that's not the case. Authentic, emotional awareness comes from recognizing that emotions are internal and they can be chosen and they can be felt. Whatever emotion we want to feel can be felt whenever we want to feel it. It doesn't actually have anything to do, it doesn't have to have anything to do with anything outside of us. So the solution piece to my work is all about that re-education about emotions and helping my couples understand that, in fact, your partner can never authentically make you feel that way. And it's about helping them learn how to conjure those emotions. Those are the ones, and it does take some creativity, because each person's different. So it's about exploring ways, like if they've never had experience with unconditional love, which can be the case, that can be a bit of a challenge. But really the focus is about helping them gain experience. Like, what does that feel like? What does unconditional love feel like? And help them actually, it's a process of teaching them how to fill their cup. Okay. So they are a full cup instead of expecting their partner to do it.
Right. Okay.
So those are things that we discuss in techniques and stuff that we go through in my program.
Great. Okay, it sounds fantastic. And then, Joyce, can I ask, do you, when you're working with solo, when you give solo support, is it someone who's in a relationship, generally they come to you, or is it someone who wants to be in a relationship and wants to do things differently? Who really are your solo clients?
Yeah, so I'm working with one lady right now who is actually in a relationship, but she wants to work on her piece before her partner comes. So she is in a relationship and she recognizes that she's had, things that are unresolved, and their plan is to get married, but she's worried about it. And she wants to make sure, now she wants to make sure she's a full cup, right?
Yeah.
So there's that, but it's not always people limited to relationship challenges. A lot of the solo couples or solo sessions that I do are people who struggle with health issues too, because they're beginning to recognize that there is a real link between emotional well-being and physical well-being. So they're people who really want to understand that emotional realm of things so that they can process their emotions rather than keeping them trapped in their bodies where they get kind of sick, right? So these are people who are now, a little bit more open to this idea that emotions actually are related to physical well-being too. So I don't, I would never, it's not like I only do, relationship stuff. I guess for me, it's more the emotional piece is probably the common denominator.
All right, I understand. Yes, I've got that. Yeah. What I'm going to do now is just have a short break, and we're going to return. We're going to actually find out how people can be in contact with you, Joyce, and then we're going to talk about how your sessions work, and also the qualities that make a great relationship. So please stay tuned. We will be back after these short announcements.
The random thought.
Imagine you are setting out on a great adventure. You're excited, and even more so because you're travelling in a hot air balloon. You've prepared very well and have all the things you think you may need for the journey. Not long after setting off, You realise the balloon is struggling to reach the right altitude. It seems that some things you decided to take with you are having an adverse effect, and you're being slowed down. The journey can only successfully be completed if you attain a particular altitude. That height is where the wind or energy steadily flows and is moving in the right direction. Your progress is being impeded because your luggage is cumbersome and it doesn't allow you to effortlessly reach the optimal height. You've got to keep moving. You've got to flow without restriction. You've got to do what it takes to give your vehicle permission to rise. You've got to make some tough decisions about what to keep and what to let go. As you scan your environment, you have a light bulb moment. You realise there are some things you've chosen to carry that are actually not needed at all. You notice things from the past that you've become accustomed to having around just because. There are things that have long fulfilled their purpose and are now outdated, unnecessary attachments, no matter how comfortable they may feel to have around. You didn't notice this before because there was never a need to stop and take an inventory of your life. As the realization deepens, you feel an overwhelming wave of gratitude. Everything has a purpose. However, not everything is required at this moment or for this journey. To advance is to pause right now and explore some deep questions that will help you to raise your game. And only by releasing some stuff will you rise and expedite your journey to greatness. Using this analogy, think about anything that you feel is limiting you. This could relate to people, places, possessions, attitude, or even a way of thinking. Get a notebook and a pen, and at the top of a page, write a brief description of what you feel is restricting your flow. The key is to be honest. There are no wrong answers, just honest reflection. Use the coaching questions in this Permission to Rise coaching tool to help you get clarity on the way forward. Remember, after each question, take a moment to stop the recording and write down what comes to mind. Question 1. What's stopping you from making progress in this situation? Question 2. What's another way to think about this? Question 3. What's likely to happen if things remain the same? Question 4. What experience would you like to have instead that is liberating? Describe this by writing what you sense yourself doing, what you hear yourself saying, and who you see yourself with. Question 5. For this to happen, what needs to happen? Write a list of possibilities. Question 6. From your list, highlight the action that inspires you. The action that leads to velocity. The action that maintains momentum. Write dates to show when you will start to put these actions into motion. Remember to tick off the actions as you complete them. That will show your progress. And periodically Ask yourself these follow-on questions. How did completing this action make me feel? What results did I gain because of my commitment? What will I do to keep moving? You can recreate this exercise for any other area of your life in which you want more clarity. To get a copy of this exercise, email info@satellitelifecoaching.com with permission to rise as the subject. Please also email to let me know the difference that this tool has made in your world. That's the random thought for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it.
The random thought.
My name is Rebecca Gordon. I'm in the coaching lounge with Joyce Schafers. Joyce is an author, a public speaker, and a life skills coach. And Joyce has been talking to us about the model that she co-created, which is the DG approach, which focuses on supporting people with emotional pain and trauma and resolving issues around that so that they can have healthy relationships and live healthy emotional lives. Joyce, I just want to ask then, and I know that your work is mainly around emotions, but just focusing here on relationships, what are two main qualities, would you say, that are needed to make a great relationship?
I always say that I personally believe that any challenge can be overcome. And what you need two things. So the one thing is both people in the relationship still need to be committed. They both need to actually want to be in the relationship. Okay, so that's, because people let a lot of time go by. There's a lot of water under the bridge. There's a lot of resentments, and some people let their relationship get to the point where they're actually done. They don't want to be in, there's no desire to work on it. So I feel like for me to be effective, they have to have that desire to be committed to the other person, to be in the relationship. That's really important, right? If you don't have commitment, you don't have any, you don't really have much. The other thing, and this is so important, you have to have the ability to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I am open to seeing how I'm contributing to the problems. Because again, without that, my hands are tied. And what I've learned is that it always takes two. Okay. It may look sometimes that one person's challenges and issues are more prominent than the others. Say in the case of sexual abuse, say the woman has been sexually abused. I mean, those are really challenging and really difficult. That's a difficult situation to be in, but but the partner definitely has a part to play in it. So if both can say, you know what, I'm committed to this relationship and I'm willing to look in the mirror and see what my part is, I feel like any problem can be resolved. I really, really do. And and that's the other really interesting thing that I've learned is that if both people can come and say, you know what, I'm sorry, this is what I've done, this is my part, and I want to apologize for that and commit to working on it. If both people say that, you'll notice that the communication is so much easier. Where if you have one person who is totally unable to do that, their communication gets, really difficult. You cannot resolve problems if one person or both are saying, no, it's not me. So those two things, I think, if you have those two things, then anything is possible.
Okay. And have you had situations where, as a result of the work that's been done, an individual or the couple realizes, actually, this is it, this is the end of the road?
In terms of they're done kind of thing?
Yes.
You know what? It has happened. And the reason it's happened is because when okay, you take the scenario, if you're an empty cup and you're like needing that person to fill you up, And then you become a full cup. It's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Okay, maybe this isn't the relationship that is best for me. Maybe this isn't the relationship that is ideal. Maybe this can't work. So, that's kind of scary for them, because I've seen it a couple times where, the one person is like, I need this relationship to work. I want this I'm so committed. But then when they became this full cup and met their own emotional needs, the dynamics in the relationship were really not necessarily healthy or good for that person. So,
Right. Yeah.
so that certainly can happen. It isn't common. Like, it isn't
No.
like,
Yes.
it's not
Yes.
common, but yes, I've seen it.
Yeah. I
Definitely.
mean, that is actually liberating, because it means that the person is then ready to attract, their match, really. Isn't that
Right. I
right?
mean, you could look at it as a failure on my part, but on the other hand, it's like, well, my goal, yes, I want to help couples resolve their relationship and keep them together. I'm so passionate about that, but yet really the goal is I want two full cups, and then what happens after that, I trust that that's probably the best thing.
Well, yes, because we do need to trust the process sometimes, don't we? Rather
Yeah,
than
for sure.
control the process. Yeah.
Yeah,
To know
exactly.
that, yeah, when we're working with a client and the intention is for them to reach their highest good or to get the highest possible outcome, that the process is working, and they reach that state of fulfillment and that full cup, as you say, in terms of
Yeah.
themselves and who they are. Okay, great, great. And the reason why I asked that actually is because I have gone through a divorce, and this was many years ago. We're talking probably about, let me see, 15 years ago. Wow, time goes quickly. But
Yeah.
at that time, there was pain, there was hurt, but that enabled me to take a path in my life that actually I'm sure I wouldn't have done it in the way that I've done it, up to now, if I'd stayed in that relationship. So that pain and the liberation that came as a result of being brave and saying, actually, there's more, then I achieved and I experienced more because of taking that step. So,
Yeah.
although it was painful, the process when it unfolded, it's given me the life. And here I am, Joyce, speaking to you as a result of that life.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah, no doubt. I can relate, Rebecca. That's my
Yeah.
story too. This whole counseling model really was born out of my divorce as well. And
Right.
it was devastating to me. But if not for that, I wouldn't have learned all that I learned and developed this model and broke my pattern and have this amazing relationship that I do today. So definitely there's always a
Yeah.
silver lining.
Absolutely fantastic. Okay, so just focusing on you and your service, Joyce. Can you just let the listener know how they can contact you and reach out to you?
Yeah, probably the best way is just on my website. So joyce-schafers.com. Also, there you'll find an email link. We can arrange that 30-minute phone conversation. So I have an office in St. Albert that I see people in person, but I do the Skype and phone sessions as well for people who aren't local, and so we just and I find those are very effective. So I don't worry about that.
Yeah.
They can be very effective as well. So I would say just the website, the email address, and even my phone number's there too.
Right.
So I like talking to people, so I have
Yeah.
no problem with people calling me up as well.
Okay. And have you worked with people internationally?
Internationally, I'm trying to think. If I have, I think mostly I'm probably furthest is just someone from the U.S. I think,
Right. Right. Yeah.
but I think I
Yeah.
think it would be great. I don't
Yeah.
see any barriers to that other than time zones, but
Oh, right, yeah. But I mean, we live in such a great time, of life now with the ability to communicate from way across the waters. That it's about finding and working with the right person, isn't it? And
yeah,
that supersedes any other challenges that there might be.
yeah.
So, how do you teach a couple to fix their relationship in just 6 sessions?
Yeah, so it goes back to using those current challenges, right? I recognize that those current hot topics and challenges are the key focus. And through that and understanding those, we get all of this awareness about those root issues. So when I work with a couple, I ask for a 12-week commitment, and I see them every 2 weeks. And it's like in those 2-week periods between the sessions, I'm asking them to pay attention to the triggers, pay attention to the conflicts, pay attention to how you're feeling emotionally. What are the things that evoke that intense emotional reaction in you? And let's bring them to the sessions. And it's all about teaching them and equipping them with that awareness and skill to deal with those things, to gain those insights, understand how they're wired, so that they can rewire themselves, right? So it's a 12-week process, but it's really about using those current challenges to decode the whole situation. And then again, with the emotional awareness piece. So it's about emotional awareness and using those current issues to decode the past, if you will.
Right, okay. Although what I'm thinking of now is that although I've got my own coach now, and I work with a coach because I believe in coaching, at the time of going through my situation leading up to my divorce, I now look back and I feel it would have been really healthy to have someone objective, who was there, who could actually help me to work through. So even if it was before the divorce and when the problems were occurring, for either as me as an individual or as us as a couple, to actually have somebody outside of ourselves just to help us have awareness of the things you've just mentioned. So, I think it's a really healthy thing for someone who's listening right now to actually just, get a consultation and see, well, actually, I'm having problems now in my relationship. What can I do and how can this person help me? So that's
Exactly.
great. Yeah. So, Joyce, what feedback have you had from people who've worked with you?
Okay, well, this is a little hard because I feel like I'm like tooting my own horn. But
hey, I do say, I've said it before to people I've interviewed and to clients as well, is that we do ourselves no service by withholding our gifts from the world. If you've got your gifts, you've got to share them and let people know about them, because somebody somewhere needs to hear what you have to say and needs to work with you.
Right. And I do agree. And I think the common feedback that I get is that because I'm so focused on their root issues, it seems like, especially the couples who have been for other counseling, find it so surprising that how fast we can get to that root issue, the things that they've never even considered before or never were even shown before. So that, to me, feels really rewarding. Is a couple who's been to counselors before and they come to me and their chins are dropping and they're saying, "Oh my God, I never connected this to my past." So that feels like, if you want to talk superpowers, I kind of feel like that's one of my superpowers, and I think it's because of I did this for myself.
Yes.
I got the biggest shovel I could, and I dug, and I got the roots out, and I know how to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Lovely. I love the metaphors that you use. They're great. So what we do in the show, Joyce, is that we actually go through towards the end, which we're coming up to quite soon. We have some quick fire questions that I'll ask you, some rapid questions for you to answer as quickly as you can. But before that, I need to ask you about your best-selling children's book series, Bellwether's Message. That sounds very interesting. What does the name mean, Bellwether?
Okay, so bellwether, what it means is it's actually means leader. So the story behind my Bellwether series is I wrote the first book when my son was a baby, so he's 18 now, and I just wanted a book that would kind of sum up all of the things that I wanted to teach him about self-esteem and like spirituality, and it's just this short little picture book, and so the illustrator that I teamed up with he actually came up with that name because he liked his character was acted like, kind of acted like this leader, this role model, this, to the child. So Bellwether stems from that. And the illustrator is amazing. His name is Louis Lavoie, and he does some incredible work. So that's kind of the story behind that. I am officially sold out again of my first book. And so I'm really looking towards doing digital copies of it. So
I see. Okay, great. And what's next for you? What projects are you working on at the moment?
So I'm really interested in writing. So I'm a writer. So I would love to write more extensively about the ADG approach. So when I work with couples, they get session notes between sessions. I offer a lot of support. They can call me between sessions if I can make it work. They can get email support. And I also have these session notes. It's like a customized booklet, if you will, about how the ADG approach impacts them or their personal situation. So I really want to write that down in a way that's a general way for all of everyone. So that's definitely on my radar. Also, an online course would be really cool too. I think that would be neat, but I think the writing thing would be definitely more of a priority for me.
And when I first introduced you, Joyce, I introduced you as a relationship counselor, because counseling is about from here and going back to the past. Do you also do coaching? I mean, how do you describe the service in terms of the mix and match between counseling and coaching?
Well, I'm very upfront with everyone, and I tell them I'm a life skills coach, and I explain my training. So mine, like I'm old, and so my training was 20 years ago, and they don't even offer that program anymore. And it was really, my colleagues worked in prison settings with high barrier, high needs people, really helping them understand their trauma. So that our program doesn't even exist anymore, unfortunately, because it's amazing. So I took all of that, created the model kind of with the emotional piece from that. I always am upfront. I'm a life skills coach. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I'm also not going to deny the fact that what we do is counseling. So I say it is counseling. It is helpful. It does address the emotional root, but I'm not a psychologist. So if people are comfortable with working with me, knowing then that's good. It is counseling though. I'm not going to pull any punches about it. It's resolving emotional issues. So
great. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Now, are you ready for the quick fire questions, Joyce?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Go for it.
Number one. What's number one in your self-care routine?
Meditation and walking in nature.
And how often do you walk in nature?
Well, I try to do it every day. I'm better at that in the summer than the winter. In the winter, I snowshoe because I live out in the sticks. So I have a kilometer-long trail that's on my property. So I try and snowshoe in the winter, and I walk in the summer. My goal is every day, but it doesn't happen every day.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Number two, what's your word for 2017?
What is my word? I didn't get one this year, and I had been thinking about that. Authenticity, I think. Authenticity. Be me and see what happens,
Yeah, I love that. Be me and see what happens.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, great. Now, I don't need to ask this next question attached to that because I can hear it all the way through when I've been speaking to you. The question was, how is this word working for you already this year? But absolutely, you've spoken about your transparency and just, being upfront and letting people know exactly who you are and what you do and your experiences. So, we can leave that attached question. Okay. Number three. What important lesson has life taught you that might help a listener right now?
The most important lesson is that you really can give to yourself everything that you need, everything of importance that you need. I really 100% believe that. Definitely. Yeah. So that to me means everything that I really needed and hoped for and wanted as a child and didn't get. it is really within my power to give that to myself. And there is such power in recognizing that. You get off that treadmill of, that crazy treadmill of seeking and never finding. And I would say that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned in my life.
Well, I think that is a perfect place to end our conversation today, Joyce, because that statement you've made there needs a time of time out for reflection to think about it.
I love your title, Self-Actualization Coach.
Oh.
I don't know if it's related to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I absolutely love that. And if it is, it's like,
Yes.
I saw that and I think, that's amazing.
Oh,
Helping
right.
people get to that point of self-actualization is so cool. So I love that idea of encouraging people to be who they're meant to be. And that's the one thing is like dealing with that trauma. I think we all have changed after our trauma. And for me, it's about helping people get back to who maybe they were meant to be.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed our conversation, Joyce.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Rebecca. You're a great interviewer. I love talking with you today. I had a really fun time. And thanks for being interested in what I do.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And hey, let's revisit and join up together again, in a little while from now and see where your journey has unfolded.
Sounds great. I'd look forward to that.
Thank you for tuning into the Coaching Lounge. Join us next time for more insightful interviews with inspiring guests. You can hear previous shows on SoundCloud by searching for Satellite Life Coaching. We're always interested to hear your feedback and topic suggestions, so don't hesitate to email us on info@satellitelifecoaching.com.